Is my screen still visible?
No, now I made
Okay.
it the host and I think you have to reshare.
Okay, I'll just quickly reshare. So yes, let's talk a bit about what we've been doing since. So I've been on this project, working on this project since almost 2.5, almost 3 years now. And Akshata, when the time comes, you can also introduce yourself. So before we go into the project, I'd like to talk a little bit about JPAL. So as an organization, JPAL has always been very much interested in rigorous research. And here, the new thing that we bring to research is that we're focusing on a particular type of research called randomized controlled trials. You must have heard a little bit about them in the medical field, especially with COVID vaccinations lately. And through these randomized trials or RCTs, we aim to inform policy. And lately, our focus has also been driven on capacity building and training of researchers to sort of grow this cohort of evidence-based and evidence-based policymakers. So we have different sectors in JPAL where the research is focused on a specific topic, and each of the sectors have their own affiliated professors and experts who drive that research to sort of arrive at important insights. And the affiliated researchers we have on the emissions trading scheme here who have been leading this project, not just in Surat, but in other. Yeah, so who's been leading the research in Surat as well as in other scale-ups as well is Michael Greenstone, Rohini Pandey, Nicholas Ryan, and Anand Sudarshan. So that's a bit about JPAL. I think we can get into a little bit on the project background now. Please, whenever there's a question, please feel free to interrupt. And I know we have a Q&A session, but I'm happy to take questions ad hoc wise as well. So yeah, so air pollution, I think it's a challenge that we all as Indians are very well aware of, and we see its incidences on a daily level. But at a national level, it obviously, in addition to being identified as a national challenge, what we need to see is a little bit of how it is structured into the environmental regulation. So obviously, just as a background, CPCB had identified certain non-attainment cities across the country, and in Gujarat particularly there are 3: Surat, Ahmedabad, and Vadodara. The main point of these cities is that the ambient air quality measures are much worse when you compare it to the national quality standards. What was done for these non-attainment cities was a program was launched by MOFCC, the NCAP, National Clean Air Program, in 2019, with a sole aim of reducing air pollution in these non-attainment cities by 30% by the next year. So in addition to this, as a part of NCAP, various state action plans were also encouraged, and ETS forms as one of the state action plans for Gujarat, in addition to other plans that were also discussed. So those were usage of community boilers, and as you would now expect that this is, when you talk about ambient air quality, obviously the air quality is made up of various sources, but here we're talking about industrial air pollution primarily. Obviously, there are other sources of vehicular construction and a lot more other sources, but here what we are focusing on is industrial air pollution, and ETS formed the basis of how to tackle industrial air pollution given quite large clusters of industries in these 3 non-attainment cities in Gujarat. So given that background, as I said, coming down to the environmental regulations, so as I said, NCAP is one such initiative which focuses on PM and sort of SO2 emissions, which we can identify as local air pollutants. There were also national initiatives on global pollutants, which we talk about as carbon, limiting carbon, and sort of working on, as you might as well know, about our NDCs in the Paris Agreement. So those are all focused on how to improve our carbon intensity of GDP. Here, what basic lack is that even though we have such initiatives, the environmental regulation that has been continuously followed in the country has been very, very sort of strict and inflexible approach, where when we talk about industries, how their air pollution is measured and tested is through visits by the Pollution Control Board, by Gujarat Pollution Control Board. And these visits are infrequent. Sometimes the sampling doesn't even happen to test the air pollution. It often entails a lot of cost to the regulator as well. So this sort of command and control approach, when you talk about monitoring industrial air pollution, becomes very, very ineffective. And thus, there is a space created for a better system, which we call a market-based system, where is a major shift from the previous command and control approach, which obviously doesn't focus only on a cleaner environment, but also making it a little more possible for industries to invest and to sort of be a little more flexible when it comes to control air pollution. As we'll talk a little bit about the project, like how exactly it incentivizes pollution abatement, because that's one of the objectives that the command and control approach lacked. Because previously, if you're getting sampled, and for PM, just for your reference, the standard limit for particulate matter emissions for industries is 150 mg per nm cube. So let's say if you do get sampled and end up above 150 mg per nm cube, they'll straight away send you a closure notice. That's sort of a very, very strict approach to deal with emissions. And what we sort of have created a space for is industry to look at emissions in a very dynamic way, and also talk about compliance in a dynamic way, where industries are also incentivized, and following an abatement strategy doesn't become too expensive for them. And all in all, the biggest takeaway I think here is also, instead of those random sampling visits that you get information on industry's emissions, you do get a wealth of data, how we're going to talk about a little bit more later. Yeah. So talking a little bit on, yes.
Could we go back to the previous slide, please?
Sure.
So what is abatement?
Okay, abatement is any effort that I would take to reduce my emissions. So for an industry, an abatement would mean maybe switching to a cleaner fuel. That cleaner fuel is relatively leading to lesser industrial emissions in that particular industry. So that would count as abatement.
Divya is basically incentivizing something to the industry to follow good practices, something like that. Abatement.
Yes. We're going to talk a little bit more detailed on what exactly these good practices are. Yeah, but I hope abatement is as a word is clearer.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so we'll move on to the Surat project. So what's been exactly happening is our implementation partner is the Gujarat Pollution Control Board. And to select a sample of industries, as we'll see, that this is basically an experiment which was conducted with GPCB in Surat to test that if a certain number of industries are selected and a market is created to trade permits to pollute, will that be effective in controlling industrial air pollution in Surat or not? When I say a market, when you just have a market for tangible goods, you have a seller and a buyer selling a commodity. Here, our commodity becomes pollution, and what you're trading becomes the right to pollute. And a permit is something that gives you a right to pollute. You can think of it as a certificate, or you can think of it as if I have a permit of, let's say, 1 kilo, I have the right to pollute 1 kilo of pollution. So that sort of validates your emissions. To select, this is, I'm not going into too much detail, but there was obviously a criteria that was followed to test this experiment in Surat. And this is basically a suitability criteria of you would have to be eligible, and this is the criteria to which then you can be sort of involved or can be a likely eligible candidate for the scheme as an industry. So basically, I think that this diagram sums up pretty nicely what exactly the the project entails. So you have a market functioning. What exactly happens is GPCB sets a pollution cap for 1 month. Right now, we're looking at a compliance period. A compliance period is something that is defined as a month or a 2-month period. So the pollution cap is set for each month by GPCB, and equivalent to that cap, permits are allocated to industries. So let's say a cap of 100 tons is set. So there will be permits per kilo will be 100,000 permits in the market. Some of them are allocated to the industries for free, while some of them are traded in the market. The total allocation of an industry, that is what becomes the basis of how they're going to trade in the market. If they feel that their initial allocation is very low, they're free to buy from the market. If they feel they have excess permits, they can sell, and that's how trading goes in that compliance period. And throughout this compliance period, how they monitor is their own emissions is through a device that is installed in the chimney of the industry, which we call CEMS, continuous emission and monitoring systems. And that picks up the particulate matter emissions from the chimney. And at the end of the compliance period, we understand how poorly or how well the industry was able to control its emissions, given that they had adequate permits to cover their emissions at the end of the compliance period. So basic do's for industries.
Could you please go back to the slide? I think that's an important slide. We're just gonna spend a little time on this. So if you could just walk us through the diagram.
Sure. So here what we've done is you can imagine this to be a regulator, right? Which is so GPCB, right? And you, for example, you have 3 industries here. The regulator is very, very important in 2 things: setting the cap and allocating the permits. And secondly, monitoring the emissions. So that's the 2 things that the regulator will do. What the industry will do after the permits are allocated to them for a particular compliance period, they will trade among themselves while also monitoring their own emissions. So the regulator is just like keeping a watch across the compliance period that, okay, I've given you this much. Now you're free to trade in the market. The commodity is pollution. You need to make sure at the end of the compliance period, you are making sure that your emissions are covered by equal amount of permits. I hope that
right. So
explain.
yeah, absolutely. It's a pretty interesting system. So what kind of cap is normally set, and what is the compliance period normally look like?
Sure. I think Akshata, would you want to talk a little bit about that? We have yes, market design components.
Yeah, sure. So like we mentioned that the compliance periods can differ based on different programs and different schemes. In this case, our usual compliance period is usually a 1 month period. And for treatment industries, which I think I'll talk about a little bit later, but for around, let's say, 150 industries, the cap that was initially set was around 280 tons. But after noticing that the emissions were usually lower than that in the first few compliance period, it was revised down to be around 170 tons for 1 month period for around 150 industries. So that was the cap that was set for the treatment plants up until, I think, October 2022. Yes.
And how accurate is the monitoring device reading? Did you get my question?
Yes, yes. So I would so in Surat we do have about 5 or 6 vendors who have been selling this device, and we have had data quality issues. I wouldn't say one vendor is superior to the other. We've had different data quality issues with each vendor, but through this process, this project started in 2019, and we've sort of built that rapport with industry, with vendors, to sort of continuously improve data quality through newer checks and balances and newer technological innovations as well. And we also have, in terms of the device itself, different principles. So it's basically called SEMS, as I mentioned. Some use light, some use electricity, some use different principles to measure the particulate matter emission. And it's I would say what it started with, it's relatively reliable now. But I think in terms of improvement, there's also like a lot of scope.
And so 80% permits are given for free on pro-rata
Yes.
basis, right? And 20% are auctioned, and then some money is collected from the industries. So
Yes.
now what does GPCB do with that money? Where does it goes?
So that is, I think there are a lot of regulatory costs when it comes to running this project as the implementer. So all of this, whatever is churned within the project, is used within itself in the project, because when you're selling, the GPCB is selling the permits, we also have a certain component in the market where GPCB buys back as well, because you also want to reward the industries who have made sure that at the end of the compliance period, they have excess permits. So obviously someone who needs permits will buy, but someone who wants to sell, they also should have a buyer ready, right? So in that case, GPCB acts as a buyer and then buys that permits, just so that industry can realize their profits.
So this is a system designed by through a research, right?
Yes.
Okay, so ideally, this money should be either going towards restoration or to the society for bearing the health cost of the pollution that these industries are given the permit for to do, right? And
Yes.
that is where the money should go. So why in this research that component is not considered in the design?
So I would say that here you're absolutely right that in order to accrue some societal benefits, that this money should be used. Although we're at a point where this sort of a caveat is yet to be incorporated in the scheme. Whatever earnings or whatever revenue has been generated by GPCB, we as as researchers have our research prerogative has been that given that this was an experiment, it was rolled out in a randomized controlled trial manner. There was a treatment and a control group to test whether this market was effective in controlling emissions or not in the treatment group. So that where the research stopped. But I think there's also like a lot of scope in making sure that this sort of revenue is realized. So that's something that definitely has been brought up with GPCB as well. But given our interaction, I think it's a conversation, it's a long-term conversation. And I think with the bureaucratic challenges that, the officials keep changing and a lot more other challenges, I think somewhere we will, I believe, reach that point. But yes, I think what you said is absolutely right.
We have Mehul who's asking a question.
Sure.
Thanks. Sorry, actually, I'm pointing out right now, or maybe you will answer this question later as well. So, do you find any kind of decreasing trend in emission through this ETS project? Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, this was actually a part of our presentation. I'm not sure. Can we get like a quick time check if we can continue with our slides though? I know it's 7 minutes.
We have time till 7:45 if it's okay for both of you as well.
Yeah, that's fine. So I think we can move on to the next set of slides. So Akshata, do you want to talk about the results?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Can you just move to the results slide? Pragati?
Yes. I don't know where my cursor went. Yeah, okay. Why is my screen frozen? Yeah, okay. Yes.
Yes. So yeah, I think as we discussed that this started as an experiment and it was a randomized control trial where we had two groups of industries. So our sample size was around 300 industries, out of which around 150 were introduced to the market in 2019, and the remaining approximately half of the industries remained in the status quo, that is the command and control regime. So once we started this experiment and once we observed a couple of compliance periods, there were 4 main results that we observed from this experiment. Number one being that there was a significant increase in the SEMS data availability itself. So basically SEMS was already mandated by CPCB in 17 category industries. And however, there was no real check on data quality or data availability for these SEMS, whatever the SEMS was sending. So with ETS, especially for the industries that were trading in the market, they had to very closely monitor their SEMS data. And also the, yeah, I can see a question in the chat box that what is SEMS? So SEMS is basically the monitoring device that Prakriti spoke about earlier, which is installed on the chimney and that measures the pollution emitted by that industry. And SEMS basically sends us minute by minute pollution data. So it is installed in the stack and it captures minute by minute emission that is emitted by that particular stack. So it helps us to very, very closely monitor an industry's emission and see the trends in their pollution behavior. And along with that, in the ETS project, we also had some rules which kind of progressively stricter imputation rules that basically if the industry is sending us less than 90% data, their emissions are substituted with some rules that were set to be progressively stricter to encourage higher data availability and quality by industries. So as a result of this project, one major impact was on the data availability, and we did observe a significant increase in that. The second result that we observed from this experiment was that industries usually complied with the market cap that was set. So in most of our compliance periods, which till September 2022, around 28 compliance periods were conducted. And we observed that in most of these compliance periods, the aggregate emissions by all the 150 industries was within the cap that was set for them. So all the industries were polluting within the limit that was set. And we also observed that the participation in auction was pretty high in most of the compliance period. So we can see that in the bar chart here that in most of the compliance, and especially in the early compliance periods, almost all industries were participating in trading in the market. So this also implies that there was high volume of trade taking place between industries, and industries that needed to buy permits were actively participating in the market to buy those permits, while those that might prefer to reduce the pollution were selling their excess permits as well. So one of the results is that the market has been functioning pretty well in the earlier compliance periods. Finally, I think the question that Mehul asked as well here, what has been the impact on the pollution? So since this was an RCT design, we have compared the pollution that was emitted by the treatment plants as compared to those by the control plants that were not included in the market. And from what we can see is that the treatment plants definitely reduced their pollution after they were introduced to the market. And if we just move to the next slide, Prakriti.
So what do you mean by treatment plants? Sorry, which treatment plants?
Yes, sorry. So I think treatment plant is basically in an RCT, we have two groups of participants. Yes, so once we have a sample decided, we divide that sample into two groups and randomly allocate the industries into treatment or control. So now what treatment means here is that that group is assigned some intervention, some policy, or some treatment, and the other group stays in status quo as they were before. So in this case here, the treatment would be getting introduced to the ETS market and being allowed to trade permits. So by treatment group, I mean the group of industry that was enrolled in the market, and they were introduced to this ETS scheme, and they were allowed to trade permits in the market based on their needs. And control group would be the second group, which remained in command and control regime, where they were not introduced to any market, or they were not given any permits, they were not allocated permits, and they were not trading in the market. They were just functioning as they were before ETS.
So what was the point of taking that sample size with some in the command and control? What was the idea?
So RCTs, the randomized control trial, we basically do that to measure some causal impact. So just to understand if this scheme, if the ETS scheme has any real impact on pollution reduction. So, and one major component of any RCT is assigning this treatment randomly. And that ensures that the two groups that we are comparing to understand the causal impact are very similar to each other in any characteristics that they might have. So that was the reason why this experiment was chosen to be an RCT. And that is why we had these two control and treatment groups.
So just to add on what Akshata has said on RCT design, basically, why would you not basically select random industries, just have them exposed to such a market and then see what was the pollution before they were enrolled and what was the pollution after. Because in such a design, the whatever difference you get, it might not be the true difference when you look at it from a research lens. What you actually need is, you actually need two groups which are similar on all characteristics. One is enrolled in the market while one is not. So the second one, which we sometimes call counterfactual, tells you if the market had not been enrolled at all, would there be any change, yes or no? Because if you don't have the control group, to actually say that the pollution was reduced because of the market becomes very, very tricky. So control group actually tells you the status quo. It could be that a scenario where we saw pollution reduction in control group when the market was not, they were not exposed to the market at all. So in that case, we cannot say that the pollution reduction was actually because of ETS. So to sort of embolden our research claims and to test that pollution is reducing only and only because of this market, we do need two groups, and one is enrolled, and while the other is just with no difference, it just continues as on. I hope that clears. Yeah, so I think from here, Akshita, you were talking about the
Results, yeah.
yes.
Yes, so here we did observe that the treatment plants that were introduced to the market, they reduced the pollution by approximately 20 to 30% more than the counterfactuals in the control group. So when we compared the treatment and the control group, we saw that the reduction in treatment group was around 20 to 30% more than the other group. And that was the main impact of this ETS scheme on pollution reduction. So because of the RCT design, when we are comparing, we can say that the pollution reduced due to ETS was around 20 to 30%. Yeah, I can see your hand raised.
Yeah. So, Kshita, just wanted to know that results you have shown just before, I think a couple of slides ago, maybe pre
I think it was the next.
before the project you have started, and post analysis as well. So how many units actually part of these initiatives?
Yes, so our sample size is around 300 industries, but when we are looking at this pre-trading and post-trading, that is only the treatment group that was introduced to the market, and that was around 150 industries.
And still they are with, means they are continuous with this project, right?
Yes. So now, so this was again a phase-in design where the treatment group was introduced to the market in 2019. And looking at the impact of the project, it was now extended and expanded to include the control industries as well. So currently, right now, the market is functioning, but it's a consolidated market with both treatment and control plants. So around 300 plants are now trading in the market.
Thanks.
So,
Thanks. Clear now.
So these caps are decided on the basis of the boiler capacity of the industry, right?
The permit allocation is made on the boiler capacity. The cap is decided by GPCB based on the industry's load and estimated emission load that industries might emit, and also based on the CPCB standard for particulate matter, the limit that is set for particulate matter, and that is allowed by the CPCB.
So for example, for the area of Surat, let's say there is about 100 particular matter that can be allowed without causing serious health hazards or pollution. So then that is on the pro rata basis allocated among these industries on the basis of their boiler capacity, or is it otherwise?
So once a market cap is set, then the 80% free allocation that is given to each industry, that is based on their boiler capacity. So let's say if the market cap is set as 100 ton, so all the industries that are included in the market, they will be allocated, in total, they will be allocated 80 tons. And out of those 80 tons, each industry will get permits based on their boiler capacity and whatever the boiler capacity is, and based on that, they'll get the share of 80 tons.
So is there a figure for Surat? What's the total emission in tons that industries can emit without causing health hazards?
So do you mean the market cap that is being
Yeah,
set?
the total market cap, as you said, that if there are 100 tons, 80% is allocated. So what is that figure?
So like I mentioned, when only treatment was traded, the market cap was set to be 170 tons per month. And now since the sample has increased and both treatment and control industries are trading in the market, so now the market cap for around 300 industries is set to be 300 tons per month.
But that's just the market cap.
Yes.
If we actually look at emissions, earlier the emissions were crossing the cap, but because of this trading that was recently launched in December, that's the consolidated trading across 300 industries. Right now, we are looking at about 70% of the cap. So the total emissions from these 300 units are not actually 300 tons. There's 70% of that. So I think it will be across about 210 or 220 tons. Yeah.
Yeah, so 300 tons is just the limit that is set. So industries, all the industries combined cannot exceed 300 units to stay in compliance. But yeah, as Prakriti mentioned, the actual emission is much lower than that.
And just as a point on the, while we're discussing the cap, I think we mentioned the fact that when this project started, the cap was pretty high. It was 280 tons for just 150 industries, which was gradually reduced to 170 tons by October 2022. So this has also been a journey of GPCB of understanding, because here also when we talk about environmental regulation, the two goals, the industries here in Surat are major drivers of economic growth. So you don't want to isolate them, and you don't want to enforce such an environmental regulation which ties their hands in terms of making economic progress. So here, this was also a learning for GPCB, like how this cap can be tightened gradually with the industry's comfort, also keeping in mind that they'll be complying to much tighter cap gradually. So 280 tons was in 2019, but we reached 170 in 2022. Yeah.
Sorry, I have joined in late. I just wanted to know who is the regulator for this, the policeman.
The Gujarat Pollution Control Board.
Okay. And like overall pollution has reduced what is shown in the slide, but what I understand is the trading is taking place between the less polluter and more polluter. Like if 10 points are allowed for polluting, somebody is polluting only 5 points. The person polluting more than 12 to 13 point is trading with the less polluter. But what I understand is overall pollution remains same. How does it reduce?
So when you say a low polluter and a high polluter, I am guessing that's the industry that you're talking about, that
Yes.
Someone is given more permits and someone is given less permits?
Not permits, but the allowable polluting limit is say 100 and somebody is emitting only 60. So he is allowed to trade the remaining 40 points. That is what I understand in this scheme. And
No,
the person who is the person who is emitting 140, the excess 40 he will purchase from the less polluting who has surplus 40. So the overall pollution remains the same. That is what I understand in this scheme.
Yeah, but as I mentioned, the overall, when you're tightening the cap, so this 20 to 30% reduction is over the time period of the scheme, which was from 2019 to 2021. Because the cap was tightened, so here in your example, you mentioned 100. You're absolutely right. So someone with surplus will sell to someone who is in lack. But when you're tightening that cap, when you're gradually coming from 100 to 80 to 60 to 40, you're controlling the overall load of pollution in a cluster. And you're making sure that industries are able to follow that and comply to that pollution load.
Is
So
there any
that's-
mechanism by which the person who has 40 surplus is not selling this 40 surplus to two people? How do you find out?
That's a cumulative total, right?
I don't think I understood the question very well. Selling to two people?
Like there are two polluters who are emitting more than 100. And
Right.
and the person who is emitting less, who has surplus 40 unit, he may sell the 40 units to 2 or 3 people. How do you control that?
But why do we want to control that? Here, our main objective
Because
is to...
he is going.
Yes, go on.
When he sells this excess 40 points to somebody else, he is going to get some monetary benefit, isn't it?
Yes. So, okay, I think I would like to underscore the idea of the project here, that it's a switch in sort of thinking as well, that while GPCB had enforced 150 mg per annum cube limit to each industry, ETS, what it does, it looks at the aggregate or the total pollution load. We're not looking at whether each industry is meeting that market cap, because that market cap is set for a number of industries together, a cluster of industries. So what we're basically bothered with is, at the end of the compliance period, is each industry within their emissions, and the total emissions is within 100 or not. That's it. So whether as a buyer or as a seller, I traded with 100 different industries, that's fine. And given the point on monetary benefit or whatever revenue, yes, because that is also one of the USPs of ETS, that it is incentivizing industry. Industries are able to realize some sort of revenue, if I may say so, from this scheme, which kind of boosts them that, okay, I can invest in cleaner fuels. I can make sure that every equipment in my industry is very pollution effective, so that whatever permits I'm allocated, I use less of them, my emission is controlled, and I sell the surplus in the market. I hope that was clear.
What is the selling price like?
So Akshita, you can talk about that. We have price floor also.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in the market design, we have a price floor and a price ceiling. So price floor is set as ₹5 and the ceiling is ₹100. And usually the price is decided based on how much the industries are bidding in the market. So whenever auctions take place, so we have weekly price setting auction, where industries can place their bids on different prices and different quantities. And based on that, based on the demand and supply, finally a price is set for the week, and the industries then trade during that week, during the at the price that was set at the price setting auction. So the minimum price that the industries can bid here is ₹5, and the maximum that they can bid is ₹100. And yeah, so the price can be set between 5 and ₹100, like anything between ₹5 and ₹100.
Earlier in the project, we did see prices going up till 35 rupees per kilo. But lately, we've been seeing around 5, 10, sometimes 15.
Rating challenge. आता अमरावती इन्व्हिटेशन आहे सुरत
If there's a question, otherwise we'll just complete the rest of the slides.
Yeah, just one again on to the point what Sneha was mentioning. I can't do it. I don't have both rights. Yeah.
Sorry,
So
should I do it?
I was going to ask, like, I think the concern or the topic that Sneha was trying to say, and I'm kind of trying to follow on to it, that these permits, whatever aggregated permits that we are coming up with, somewhere are they linked to what should ideally be, for maintaining the well-being of the people living in the city? Are they somewhere being linked to that, or are we saying that right now this was how much the emissions are, and we don't right now consider the benchmark or the ideal benchmark, so to say, but we just say that okay, right now the industries are maybe polluting this much, and we can just try to reduce step by step.
Yeah. So again, I would talk about the kind of and the main objective of research here, that if you look at environmental economics as like a field, given that this is the first ever ETS for particulate matter emissions, Surat is the first place that a scheme like this is being tested for particulate matter. I'm sure you guys must have heard about carbon ETS for carbon. I think EU ETS is one of the major, very well-known examples of an ETS for carbon, the European Union market. And linking this research to a larger societal benefit and the greater good for the society, I think it's sort of the last leg that you would want to achieve with a project like this. And right now, where the stage we are is that it's sort of like half or like an 80% job done, where we're able to say that yes, through this sort of an innovation, through this sort of a change in thinking, of looking at emissions in a different way, of establishing a market for pollution, we are able to reduce pollutions. But how does it affect the larger good for the people? And here I'd just like to mention one more point, that in this field of research, given ETS Surat, there was also a secondary study conducted which focused on how ETS, because right now it's just looking at industrial air pollution in isolation, how it related to ambient air quality in the city. Ambient air quality, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's made up of a lot of things, right? So just to test if there is a link between the two, because in ambient air quality also, you will feel that there is one source of industrial pollution. So if you're saying that 20 to 30% industrial pollution decreased among these 150 group in 150 industries, did it have any effect on the ambient air pollution, which is more relevant when we talk about the society? So what we found out in that secondary study was that obviously it came into a lot of assumptions, given ETS has only been going on for 2 years. If this goes on for a considerable amount of time, for let's say 5 to 7 years, you can expect, and also a larger number of units, industries are covered in the scheme, not just the pilot 150. You can expect that the ambient air quality will show reduction of about 10 mg per annum cube in the longer run. So that is, I think, the point where we're trying to reach through research like this. Yeah. Anybody else with a question?
So 170 is per industry, right? 170 ton is per industry. No, it's overall.
No, it's overall. The pollution load is, the market cap is always for the cluster. It's not for each industry.
New industries come up, then it would be divided between everybody then. And for each industry.
Yeah, so there are different ways that you can calculate for if you have more industries coming in. Like as Akshita mentioned, now we have 300 industries trading in the market. The market cap is set as 300 tons per month. So there's various ways you can prorate it. You can calculate an altogether new cap. So yeah, multiple ways to do that.
So is there a plan to extend this pilot to the whole, all the industries in the city?
So as I mentioned, that there is a criteria that needs to be followed when you're talking about this scheme. Most of the industries here in Surat, they're very well eligible. So we began with 150. We've included another 150. So right now they're 300. The third phase is sort of, again, like around 200 industries which fit the criteria within Surat, which are getting prepped for sort of a phase 3 expansion within Surat. And also we have expansion and scale-ups for other cities as well. So looking at this innovative project, the GPCB and the government of Gujarat have been quite excited in launching this in other cities. So our scale-up in Ahmedabad is already underway. As I mentioned, you need a sort of SEMS infrastructure to be in place so that trading can happen. We have completed that process in Ahmedabad. We are looking at launching the trading now in Ahmedabad. I think soon, in another 1 month or so, we'll have the trading launched there. And also we are getting interest from other states as well who want to replicate this design, sort of test it in their own industrial clusters. Also looking at national ETS, although this is a very localized version of it in Surat and Ahmedabad and some industrial clusters in Gujarat, heavily polluting clusters. But we're also looking at sort of a national model for this for bigger global pollutants like carbon and SO2. Yeah.
Prakriti, if an industry comes on board, like what is the cost for the initial cost, like machine lagana hoga and something like that? They have to they have to organize their systems in order to.
Yes.
Do you check the APCD devices also शुरू में कि ठीक ठाक काम कर रहे हैं कि नहीं? Like their efficiency is good because.
Exactly.
So,
yes.
So
that
what all
steps
you take to see before the industry comes on board, and like what all the initial cost the industry faces, and what is like if you talk like आपकी बात होती रहती होगी जीतू भाई and all, sir, what is the recovery period of that cost? Like कुछ तो प्रॉफिट होता होगा, लाइक मतलब कहीं ना कहीं से तो उनको लगता होगा जो मैंने इनिशिएटिव लिया है उससे मुझे फायदा हो रहा है. सो कितना कॉस्ट इनिशियल होता होगा और कितना रिकवरी कॉस्ट? लाइक मेरा पूछने का मकसद ये था कि वी जनरली एमएसएमई के बारे में वी रीड कि दे आर नॉट ओपन टू न्यू टेक्नोलॉजीज एंड दे आर नॉट वेरी क्रिटिकल, मतलब पैसा खर्च करने को जल्दी तैयार नहीं होते हैं. सो इन दैट कॉन्टेक्स्ट आई वांट टू सी इट.
Right.
Like how open they are, what is the initial cost and what is the recovery period kind of thing. Yeah.
Great question. Definitely something that everybody needs to think about when you're rolling a scheme like this. So to answer your first part of question, there is a cost involved obviously in setting up SEMS. That's the device in the chimney. So as I said, there are various vendors. Depending on what kind of technology you want to go for, it ranges between 3 to 8 lakhs. And there are other smaller costs which are part of the market design. So those are, I won't go into too much details, but those are also to ensure compliance, to
You
have
mean regular calibration of the instrument and so
calibration
forth?
is one such, but there's
Yeah.
also
So the calibration is supported by the supplier under the supervision of
that is,
GPCB.
yeah, that is covered. But we also have a sort of a deposit, which we call an EDCD, Environmental Damage Compensation Deposit. That is basically to ensure that the industry is not exceeding its permits. Because at the end of the compliance period, you need to have a penalty for an industry who's doing that. If you don't have one, the compliance will not be industry will be
Yeah.
very free to non-comply, right?
End of the day, some sticks should be there. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, some sticks should be there. So what our design is that this deposit is already made by the industry in the beginning of the trading itself. There is also a deposit that is kept with GPCB. I wouldn't say it as a cost, because when an industry, let's say, leaves the market, that deposit is returned to them. So it's sort of like just a collateral. So that is one of the things there. But in terms of the recovery, yes, I've had several conversations with Jitubai on this, that I think you can expect in like a longer market where, I mean, you would easily expect an emissions trading scheme to actually give you the return like a longer period. So would be like a year or more than that. So the initial cost of SEMS, I think, can be recovered. Also, I would also say here that it depends on the industry as well, because again, it is completely flexible on the amount of permits that you would want to sell in the market, right? I know that there are constraints on how easily you switch fuels, or how easily you can maintain your APCD devices. For everybody's reference, APCD devices are basically pollution control devices that in every industry has. There are industrial equipment that are present in the industry, which treat the emissions much before that they are released from the chimney. So those are called air pollution control devices, APCDs. And the sort of so again, I think it depends on the industry on how much they just want to like invest and recover in the market through sale of permits. And on your question on the data collected by us, right, on APCD efficiencies and everything. So as JPAL, because it's an experiment, we did have field surveys conducted. That was a baseline survey, which was at the beginning of the market. We had a midline survey during the market, and an endline survey, which was last year at the end of the first phase of the market. And through these surveys, we collected information on APCDs, on their efficiency, on their working, on a lot more other industrial parameters as well. And I would say that that the condition of the APCDs is not ideal in industries.
I know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a much bigger challenge in sort of maintaining and in operating that, because what an industry thinks is like, okay, GPCB has asked me to do this, I'm just going to install it and forget about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's a constant need of sort of check and monitoring that is required there also.
Yeah. I know because I think the scheme was in a pilot scheme, and मेरे ख्याल से अभी not realize its full potential. Start हुई, फिर कोविड आ गया, फिर
Exactly, yes.
इंडस्ट्रीज बंद हो गई, फिर कोविड के बाद से अभी भी जीतू भाई से बात करो तो भाई फुल कैपेसिटी पे अभी भी नहीं चल रही है. तो जब तक इंडस्ट्री फुल कैपेसिटी पे नहीं चलेंगी, मतलब वो अभी भी बोलते हैं ऑर्डर्स नहीं है, ये नहीं है, वो मतलब मैं
Yes.
उनसे मिलता रहता हूँ, तो अभी भी मतलब ऐसा कोई एक लार्जर पीरियड टाइम पे जब हमको पता चलेगा, वैसा डेटा आएगा कि इंडस्ट्री सारी फुल कैपेसिटी पे चल रही है, एंड देन वी कैन देन टेल कि सिटी की एयर क्वालिटी पे उसका क्या इम्पैक्ट हुआ है. फिर धीरे धीरे, और क्योंकि अहमदाबाद में तो चलो स्टार्ट होने वाला है, वो पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल बोर्ड वाले बता ही रहे थे. सो मेरे ख्याल से कोविड, पोस्ट कोविड, और इंडस्ट्रीज को व्हाट काइंड ऑफ सपोर्ट यू गिव, बिकॉज वो एक मुझे थोड़ा सा इशू लगता है, बिकॉज व्हेनेवर देयर इज मार्केट ड्रिवन स्कीम, लाइक अभी कोई एक बैक बेंचर है जो पोल्यूट कर रहा है और वो परेशान हो गया, मतलब तो वो फिर बोलेगा कि मैं पोल्यूटर पे प्रिंसिपल, पोल्यूट भी करता हूँ और फिर चिंदी भी जलाता हूँ, तो ऐसे स्टूडेंट्स के लिए आप क्या कर सकते, मतलब बिकॉज उसमें कोई जीपीसीबी की भी रेगुलेटरी मैकेनिज्म है, उसमें कोई हैंड होल्डिंग है नहीं कि भैया चलो उस बच्चे को एक्स्ट्रा क्लासेस लगा दें और उसको मेन स्ट्रीम में ले आए, लेकिन वैसा कोई सिस्टम है, मतलब आपके पास कुछ ट्रेनिंग्स, हैंड होल्डिंग, मतलब प्रोजेक्ट के कंपोनेंट में पूछ रहा था।
Akshita, would you like to answer that question? She's been conducting a lot of these webinars and workshops with industries lately. Yeah.
Yeah, so just to answer that question, we definitely provide a lot of support as JPAL and as the research team to industries. We conduct many. So recently, when phase two control industries were included in the market, that's when I joined the project, and that's when I undertook this implementation for phase two. So we provide them, we conduct a lot of webinars, a lot of training help desks. We also organize training sessions with industries. We organize in-person training with industries where we take them through each component of the projects very in a lot of detail. We explain to them everything that needs to be done, everything that the project is about, how they can trade in the market. We give them very detailed trainings on how to use the portal, how to participate in the auction. And so, yeah, as you can see on the screen, this is our trading portal where industries can participate in these auctions online. So obviously, this also takes some time for the industries to get used to. And just to make sure that the industries are actually ready before they participate in the market, we do conduct mock trading periods before starting the actual market. So mock trading for control industries, there was around a 3-month period where the control industries that were going to be included in the market were trading only in a mock market where there were no actual financial penalties, but it was a replicated market of the actual market where the industries could participate, they could learn what needs to be done, they could learn everything about the market, they could learn how to trade, they could also observe their pollution behavior and see what can be done to reduce pollution if they want to sell their excess permits in the market. So yes, we have conducted very detailed sessions, and also we have this system of mock trading where we make sure that before starting and implying any financial implications for the industries in the market, we make sure that they are ready and they have all the information they need. And apart from that, on a day-to-day basis, also we have a team at JPAL that is in constant touch with the industries and there to resolve any questions or any concerns that they might have with the project, or if they need any help with the project. So we have a team to address those concerns on a day-to-day basis as well.
I'm curious, are there any consultations as part of this project, or where they can be given advice on how they can shift to cleaner practices? Because at the end, that is one of the objectives, right? That slowly the cap should reduce.
So, yeah, go on, Akshata.
Yeah, please go ahead, Prakriti.
Okay. So I would say there are no, I mean, isolated consultations with the industries. It's a part of our conversation during these workshops and webinars that Akshita mentioned. And also, I have sort of realized this as my experience with them is that they almost equate it to a stock market. So in their head, some of them, as you would know, that Gujarati people are really, incentive driven. So they would, their mind works in a way that they need little help in coming up with alternatives. So some of them where we do have good rapport with the owners and with the managers of the industry, they also have this sort of thinking that, okay, without hurting my production, what kind of changes we can do. So we've seen that sort of self-initiative as well. But from JPAL, I would say the consultations or these sort of conversations are a part of our workshop when we're trying to explain the project to the industries. Yeah.
Actually, Prakriti, Monday we did a training program with the boiler operators in
Okay.
Pandesara, and that was eye opener. So trading वगैरह that's fine because वो तो मालिक करता है, लेकिन जो boiler operators हैं, because
Yeah.
I was surprised to see that all the boiler operators are the APCD managers also, like air pollution devices भी वही देखते हैं.
Right,
And
right.
their skill sets are low in like
Yes.
कब पता कब करना है ऑपरेशन मेंटेनेंस, बैक फिल्टर जल के गिर गया तब पता चलता है कि अच्छा जल के
Yeah.
गिर गया, हवा गर्म जा रही है नहीं जा रही. सो दे डोंट हैव अ स्किल पर्सन टू लुक एट द एपीसीडी डिवाइसेस. जो बॉयलर चला रहा है वही देखता है. एंड सो दोस काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स हमको भी पता चले. तो या लॉट ऑफ थॉट्स एंड आइडियाज. आप सूरत में ही हैं? Because
Yes, yes. So me and Akshita both are in Surat, but I think we'll love to have a conversation with you on what
sure,
exactly were
because
your
we are doing
findings.
some training programs and we could collaborate and see something.
Definitely, definitely. I
मंडे को
think
ही
that
एक
will be
इवेंट किया,
useful.
जीतू भाई भी थे, आरो मैडम भी थी. सो
Okay.
काफी कुछ नई चीजें पता चली जो बॉयलर ऑपरेटर्स जो अपने लेवल पे फेस करते हैं.
जी जी जी.
डे टू डे हर चीज के लिए वो मालिक के पास नहीं जाते हैं. वो
नहीं जाते हैं. True.
एक मैनेजर होता है, इंजीनियर होता है कि उसको कोई कॉस्ट होती है वो इतने में मैनेज करना है. सो बहुत सारी चैलेंजेस थे कि जो मेंटेनेंस होता है एपीसीडी का, तो वो बोलते हैं कि उस मेंटेनेंस के लिए बॉयलर बंद करना पड़ेगा. तो बोला नहीं, बॉयलर बंद मत करो, फिर एफिशिएंसी लो हो जाती है. सो दोस काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स. एंड देन इंडस्ट्री में भी आपस में लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड होनी चाहिए. अब कुछ लोग आधा कोयला आधा लकड़ी जला रहे हैं, कुछ लोग आधा कोयला जला रहे हैं, कुछ की प्रोडक्शन कॉस्ट कम है, कुछ की ज्यादा है. तो बोल रहा है सर वो जो चिंदी वाला है उसको कोई पकड़ नहीं रहा, उसकी कॉस्ट बहुत कम पड़ रही. मैं तो कोयला प्रॉपरली जला रहा हूँ, सेम्स में भी मेरा डेटा जा रहा है, फिर भी तो मैं कैसे कम्पीट करूंगा उसके. तो इंटरनल बहुत सारे चैलेंजेस हैं. अच्छा, सेम्स की जो मशीन देख रहा था उसमें सिर्फ पीएम आता है, तो वो पीएम 2.5 है, पीएम 10 है, या कलेक्टिव कुछ तो भी नंबर है? वो एसपीएम है, मतलब पीएम 2.5. गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया पार्लांस में बोले तो पीएम 2.5 है वो
जी,
जो मशीन लगी होती है
जी.
और प्रोजेक्ट के नेक्स्ट फेज में कुछ दूसरे पोल्यूटेंट्स को भी देखने का इरादा है, SO2 वगैरह. मतलब
जी, डेफिनेटली एज आई मेंशन्ड हमारे जो
SO2 तो काफी हाई है सूरत में,
चल रहे हैं. एग्जैक्टली नेशनल लेवल पे हम देख रहे हैं. CO2 में भी इंटरेस्ट आया है, SO2 में भी इंटरेस्ट आया है. PM तो है ही, बट जो ये ग्लोबल पोल्यूटेंट्स होते हैं उनके लिए भी आई मीन ETS ऐसा टूल है जिसको आप मॉडिफाई कर सकते हो किसी भी पोल्यूटेंट के लिए. सो यस.
अभी पता नहीं इसका लॉन्ग टर्म प्रोजेक्ट का इम्पैक्ट जैसे आप लोग दिखा रहे हैं. आई होप जोलन भाई इज एग्रीड टू दैट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. वो जो पिक्चर दिखाते हैं पोल्यूशन का वो थोड़ा अलग होता है. एंड जो सूरत का जो कंप्लायंस है जिसमें एनकैप का जो हम करते हैं, तो उसमें आई थिंक जो जब तक पूरी इंडस्ट्रीज इसको फॉलो नहीं करेंगी तब तक शायद वो रिजल्ट ओरिएंट करना सूरत के लिए और कंप्लायंस मीट करना नेशनल लेवल का वो एक चैलेंज रहेगा. इसीलिए जो उस दिन
एग्जैक्टली
जोलन भाई ने जो नोडल ऑफिसर है SMC के, जिन्होंने दिखाया, तो उसमें इंडस्ट्रियल पोल्यूशन फिर भी थोड़ा सा हायर साइड ही था. इफ आई करेक्ट मी दिव्या इफ आई एम रॉन्ग.
I have one question here regarding the study only. When you compared between random group, RCT group and treatment group, control group and treatment group. So was the boiler capacity of both the groups same?
Yes.
To that 10 to 20% reduction. So
Yes.
total boiler capacity of the treatment group was equal to the total boiler capacity
Yes.
of the control group.
Yes, not just boiler capacity, other parameters, APCDs installed, everything was kept the same, because by design, these two groups have to be similar if you have to test any intervention. Yeah.
So they were not randomly selected, but they were selected in a manner that their capacities remain same.
No. So the sample of 300 was selected on similar characteristics, but the allocation to treatment and control was randomly done.
Okay.
I think we're a little over time, but I think there will be a lot of questions, and me and Akshita are very, very happy to talk about with this more. Obviously, it's a little technical and it's a lot of moving parts here, I believe. But I think Divya, I think we should cap this here.
Yes, Prakriti and Akshita, thanks a lot for this wonderful session. I was wondering, is it possible to plan a visit with a small group on the field to kind of have a look at what's happening?
Sure. I mean, we just would notify GPCB because everything, as I mentioned, that they are an implementation partner. But yeah, I think that would be very much possible, and me and Akshita can probably have this done as well. Yeah.
So perhaps in about 1 to 2 weeks, we could plan a little, like a small tour, and I'll connect with you separately on that.
Yeah, that sounds great. Definitely.
Thank you so much for being patient with our questions. I think we bombarded you with the questions.
No, we love to talk about this, but I'm not sure if there were other items on the agenda. Sorry for hogging up all the time.
No,
but,
that's fine. That's fine. I think
yeah.
it was very insightful, and everybody needed that. So thanks a lot for joining. And if you both like, you can leave, because we have a small little 10-minute something that we'll be talking about. But before you leave, I don't know if you were introduced to what we are doing at SSRT.
Just a small conversation with Dikshita, I believe, but please go ahead.
Yes, so it's basically a citizens dialogue group, and we don't want to stop at the dialogue itself, but we also want to, have discussions and then come out with some actionables. And normally those actionables are divided into two parts: some things that we can do as citizens, and some other things that have to be done at the governance level with the support of the government to have real scale impacts. And because the group comes from a very diverse background, we're able to have very interesting conversations and very different perspectives to whatever we keep in the center. And the whole idea for bringing such a group together is to be able to bridge it, create a certain channel between the citizens and the authorities, which we often feel is lacking, and there is a prejudices on both sides about each other. And that's what we're trying to do through this network, and it's still evolving. It's been 5 months since we have started this in Surat.
I think it's a great initiative, and the fact that we can talk about. I was looking at the website, so it doesn't leave any topic off the table. So it's biodiversity, air pollution, solid waste management. So some of the things that personally I'm also interested in and would love to know more about. So thanks for inviting us. I hope everybody took a little bit away from the session, and we'd love to perhaps take this conversation forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So Prakriti, still Anand is with this project, or he left this?
Anand Sudarshan?
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Okay. So he's in India or is in Chicago?
He keeps moving, but I think he got he's a professor now in University of Warwick. I think so. He's in London, if I'm not wrong. Yeah.
So very initially, he actually involved me in this process.
Sorry?
He was involved me in very initial process actually.
Okay.
This
right.
project.
Yes. So all 4 PIs continue to be involved. We do have catch-ups with them. Yeah.
No.
All
Thank
right.
you so much, Akshita.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prakriti, Akshita.
I will make you host. I don't want to end the call for everybody. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So, Chaitali, should I make you the host, or Mansi, perhaps?
You can make Heli Desai host.
Heli, thank you so much for putting up with this. I know you.
Ma'am, can you make Dharni the host, because she's presenting?
Okay, yes. So first of all, before the start, I want to give I think a lot of credit to Chaitali for leading this, and of course, the team of Dharni, Haley, and Nikki here, who are from Bhagwan Mahavir, and we launched about almost a month ago, the biodiversity survey of Surat, because everything has to start from the data. And that is the reason and they're doing something really amazing, and we are also trying to improve it, and we thought it would be a good time for them to present what they've done with one pilot data collection. So over to you.
Journey.
खाओ ना उनको समोसा खा ले वो खा ले हाँ एक ले આ બની ચીજના બધા આપણી હાથનો જ છે દુકાન છે salsa મટન આ સુરંગનાની બા ઓર્ડર આપવો પડે સુરંગના સુરાવો બોલો સુરંગના 200 ને
Journey, can you, sir?
It is visible?
Yeah, it is visible.
Okay.
Okay.
So now Priya will be presenting on the garden survey that we did. Yes, Priya.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, good evening, everyone. So we have a survey garden, Swami Vivekanand Garden on Qatar. So we have seen there what are the types of native species present there. 46 species are present. Okay, so we have seen different kinds of trees and different kinds of trees and natives. There are total 28 varieties of trees and shrubs are there. In this, there are total there are 14 types of native species are there. So, 14 native species are there. This is the plan. You can see the tree coverage area. Just a minute. So this is green cover area in which in this we have done the survey, and we see that it has 65% of softscaping and rest 35% of is hardscaping. Hardscaping includes the area which is for pathways and for skating ring they have provided. We have included this in soft coverage and hard coverage. Next, or mostly it has temperature of 26 to 25 to 26 degrees Celsius at the time of 4 to 6 p.m. In between, it has temperature of 20 to 25 to 26 degrees
Priya,
Celsius.
Is it possible for you to move the sharing strip aside, because we can't see the data because of that?
Okay, ma'am. I will try.
Right. If you can just drag it and put it aside, the sharing strip.
Okay.
Did you understand what I said?
Yes, ma'am. I'm done doing it.
Okay, take your time.
1 minute, ma'am. Ma'am, now is it visible?
Who's sharing the screen? Is it Dharni or is it Priya?
It's Dharni.
Dharni, you need to move that strip. Something that says stop sharing.
Sure.
That
Yes,
can't see what behind whatever data is there behind.
No, where it is written www3 dot.
Ma'am, there is a technical glitch in this.
Okay, okay, never mind. We'll continue. No worries. Never mind. Please continue, Priya.
So this is we have मतलब हमने देखा कि वहाँ पे जो कवरेज जो वहाँ पे कैसी जो पीपल्स है वो लोग कौन ये गार्डन में जो कौन से फुटस्टेप्स कौन से एज ग्रुप्स के ज्यादा आते हैं, इसके लिए हमने वहाँ पे सर्वे किया था कि वहाँ पे रेसिडेंशियल्स और कमर्शियल्स बिल्डिंग कौन कौन से है, तो उस बेसिस पे सर्वे था। और यहाँ पे मेनली ओल्ड एज पीपल्स और जो चिल्ड्रंस होते हैं वो यहाँ पे मोस्टली विजिट करते हैं ये गार्डन में अपनी डे टू डे एक्टिविटीज को करने के लिए। और यहाँ पे मेनली हमने देयर आर टू टाइप्स ऑफ पेमेंट, one is RCC payment and other one is paved block payments. RCC payment is only done in the skating area, which is used for skating and dancing of this this area is mainly used by the children of various age groups, but it has disadvantages also that it absorbs a lot of heat and it creates a heat wave around it. There are total 14 types of species, but in this we have trees like Kesudo, Asopala, Coconut, Nilgiri, in which we have count number of trees there. So we have found there are 3 Kesudos in this Asopalas, almost 80 to 90s. They have mostly planted Asopala tree there, but with also they have planted different kinds of palm trees over there. So other trees have other native trees have less less numbers, but Asopala and types of palm trees have a large numbers of trees planted there, and other species, exotic species like Canocorpus are the main trees which is planted there. Thank you. Next. इसमें हम we also get to know about many plants. What are the effects of these plants? We see birds, some birds and butterflies are on Kesudo, which because it has a flower. So when we have visited, so many birds are coming there, and it also provides shelters to many birds. And trees like mango and badam trees, we have seen parrots on it. Next. There are some reference pictures. You can see what are the types of trees we have seen there. This is also trees. There is also decomposite pit is also provided, where all the sweepers collect and put the biodegradable waste here. And after some time, after the period, the SMC team came and collect all this waste and let it process further. We have survey. Is there any shadow we get while we are sitting? And we found that it has 80% sitting with shadow or tree coverage, but some 20% area which is not to come in the green cover area. It didn't get the shadow. The pathways are designed in this way that they get shadow all time. In the daytime also, we don't feel direct sunlight. Or here some, but in this they have mainly palm trees uses in some of the area to increase its beauty, or to as they are fast growing they have used, but it has green coverage area. including both native and exotic species. Next. Various activities are also taken place here, or they only have provided pavement in pathways, or all other areas are they don't have provide hardscaping. So the groundwater uh, uh, groundwater absorbs the water and don't let the groundwater going below. Next. But we have found a space where we can plant many native trees. It is on the end of a garden beside a toilet. This area is not properly used or not properly planted. It has totally or incomplete plantation is done here. So we can do a proper plantation here. Here is an example. How can we do it? We can use trees like fruit trees to attract birds, and we can use also we can make a combination of shrubs and trees to introduce both birds and butterflies towards it. Next. This is a section I have made that how pathways are covered and is humans are getting shadows or not. This is the section of play area, section C-C. In this, the children area is don't getting the shadow, but it has but it also don't have a pavement area, but it beside it they have shrubs and trees plantation are there. Thank you. Thank you.
So just to give the background, the idea for doing gardens.
Sorry.
Am I audible?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
So I was saying that to give the ones who had not attended the session, that we are doing this garden survey to see if, how we can better utilize the existing gardens to shift it to native species. And that is one of the reasons for this project. And basis on this, they will be doing more garden surveys, and they've been given our checklist of what we need to be doing, right? Yeah. So we go to the TP scheme, unless anybody has questions with Priya or some suggestions. Sneha, Dikshita, you'll have anything to say?
No, I think it was quite exhaustive, so we can move on.
Yeah. Yeah, so giving the view about the TP scheme, what we are doing. So basically, we are taking one TP scheme and mapping the green cover area, the existing green cover area that is there. So coming to the TP, next, Dharni. Yeah. So we are analyzing the TP number 37 that is situated in Althan. And what we found is, as you can see in the plan, that these are the different green areas that are found in the TP scheme, and the green cover that you can see. So there are different vacant plot. So the brown ones are the vacant plot where there is no lush green also available. They are just a vacant plot. And the green ones are the vacant plot or a lush green. They are vacant, but they have a lush green spread out over there. And the third category is designated garden that is given by the SMC. So there are two gardens that are been designated by SMC. One is the Althan area, and second is in the TP scheme. And the third project that is major in this TP is a biodiversity park. So as you can see here, there will be a biodiversity park in the adjacent to the creek here. So here the biodiversity park is coming up. So for the survey of the green cover, that how much the area we can calculate. So the total area of this TP scheme is around 8 lakh, and we have divided the green cover into 3 segments that are COP. So basically COP is the common area that every building has, that is common area where they plant different green areas and trees and shrubs and everything. So that are COP area. Second is the designated gardens that are given by the SMC. And the third is the land parcels that are available in the TP scheme. So we have divided into 3 categories. And what we got is after overall, that is 2 lakh. From 8 lakh, we are getting 2 lakh that are vacant land available for green cover. And that is 2 lakh. So that is around or almost that is around 25%. But the green cover area.
Sorry, this 25% is the 25% of the total land of Althan TP scheme?
Althan TP scheme.
Okay.
So with the vacant plot also. So what's the problem over here is the vacant plot can be constructed anytime. So there are farms available for party plots or something. So that can also.
I'm so sorry. This land area जो आपने इसमें दिखाई है pie chart में, इसमें जो non garden area वो तो है नहीं ना इस pie chart?
है 25%. So among that 25%, we have 11%.
Residences कहाँ है इसमें?
No. What I'm saying is, after overall we have 100% of the land. Among them, we have 25% of the land, vacant land available. And what this pie chart shows that how 25% is being divided.
Acha, that
so
25
that 25%, yes.
Okay.
So
okay.
from
that 75% is occupied by
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that 25% is divided into 3 categories. That is designated garden. So the major portion goes into the Althan area and biodiversity park. Second is COP area. So that is the COP area of the building. And 11% category is a category that can be anytime constructed into buildings. We don't have ownership of that because it is private, and it can be any day converted into construction sites also. So that is how what we have surveyed till now.
और जो हमने वो उस दिन find out किया था, which I think would be interesting for Sneha, Dikshita and everyone, is because what we found out was कि जो green cover हमने देखा, जो existing green cover है, without a scientific so to say method, but with whatever you saw on the Google Earth and then you went and checked, we could find it was close to 2%, right?
Close to 2%.
And that 2% also included the lawn, so it's not even dense.
Not dense, correct.
So that was
so the major portion till now is the data collection. That is what we have done till now. So we were just analyzing the existing scenario, and we were going on the site and mapping every green cover and plots over there. So till now, that is what we have done, the major portion of the thing.
Did you have the chance to speak to Kavita, that GIS?
No, ma'am, not yet, actually. We'll be doing in the next week.
So I also got a contact. So just for the background of Dikshita and Sneha, and I don't know if there's anyone else.
Yes, ma'am.
So basically what we were thinking was to have like a scientific methodology of doing this, so that if you're anyway doing all this data collection, we can make claims that this is properly done, so that there is a scientifically acclaimed method that we're using. And I got in touch with someone from MS. She's done MS botany some time ago, and she has contact with someone from GIS, and she said GIS में इतना ज़्यादा data available होता है कि आपको एकदम exactly पता चल जाएगा कि कितना green cover है, उसमें आपको physically जाने की ज़रूरत नहीं रहेगी. बहुत detail level का information, वो geosensing and all those things she was
georeferencing, yes.
Georeferencing, okay. So she was saying that a lot of that is available So, and I asked her for a contact with this professor from MS. So I should be able to let you know within this week when we can plan that.
Surely, ma'am, surely.
If she agrees to do a session with you all.
Surely.
Yeah. So meanwhile, आप भी कुछ suggest कर रहे थे ना चेताली की SVNIT से किसी को बोलना है कि कैसे?
Yes, वो pending है. That we will do it next week.
Okay, तो मैं MS में बात करूँ ना जो वो ये प्रोफेसर
Yes,
कांटेक्ट दे रही है ना, तो उनसे हम एक बार बात करके देख लेते हैं कि क्या सही मेथोडोलॉजी रहेगी. But this is already a, you know, what you found out is already something very very shocking, and it also reconfirms what our hypothesis had been. तो और ये जो बायोडाइवर्सिटी पार्क आ रहा है वो तो ऑब्वियसली ग्रीन अभी वहां पर ऑलरेडी पेड़ हैं. आई सॉ अ लाइन गोइंग देयर.
Yes, yes. Actually, पेड़ है मैम, पर अभी for construction purpose, some of them have been demolished. मतलब निकाल दिए गए.
Okay, okay, right. So I think वो they will say कि ये वाले में तो वो आने वाला है, but ठीक है. Great. So I think we next steps. I think we can discuss Chaitali, and whenever you suggest we should meet, we could plan. When do you think we should all meet now for the next steps?
I think 15 days. After 15 days. या उसके yes, GIS के लिए पहले देखना है and वो सेटअप करना है, उस पर क्या हो सकता है.
ठीक ठीक. प्रिया को I would like to suggest हम plan कि हम एक list के format में इसको डाल दें. In one slide we are able to see what we've done. So वो Priya, if you need help with that, then you can let Dr. Chaitali or me know, and we can help you put it in a structure. I think Jagdish Bhai could help as well. If you do that, because इससे क्या होगा, in one place you have all the information.
वो garden का कर रहे हैं सब लोग. We are setting up the format.
And are you already on to the next gardens?
Yes,
आप लोग ने कितने gardens कर लिया? I think you said you
gardens
did some. Okay. Right. ठीक है. All right, fine. चलिए ठीक है, तो I'll let you know about the GIS. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your time. All right, bye.